Hey, Bastish B here for 64K and welcome to my review of the Sega Genesis Mini. And welcome back. So this system has been out for just over 2 weeks at this point. I've been playing it quite a lot and I'm really enjoying it. I love everything about it. The game selection is great, the quality of the system is awesome. This was probably like one of my most anticipated minis coming out. At least the Commodore 64 one, the C64 Mini is obviously the one I love the most. This one was probably my second most anticipated one, so I just had to get it. At least until next year when the PC Engine Mini comes out, because I'm not very familiar with that system. I've only played a few games, so that's going to be like quite nice introduction to PC Engine games. Okay, so let's first get started and check out what you actually get for your money.
Okay, so here it is. Here's the new Sega Genesis Mini box. It resembles the old classic one from back in the day, which is very nice. Here's all the games, all 40 of them, pretty diverse mix. You also got the 2 up top here that are the bonus ones, making it 42. Here's the system itself. As you can see, the quality is really high. It looks so good. I like all the unnecessary details, like the cartridge slot that actually opens. Also the little audio volume control that goes up and down. So when you turn it on for the first time, you come to this main menu with all your games. So you can go up to settings. I'll show you a few quick settings here. Screen settings, you got the choice of 4:3 or widescreen. It's basic, I like it, you get straight to the point. And you also got some wallpaper. You got these 2 graphic wallpaper backgrounds and plus just the plain old black, which I like. And in the top right there you can see you can change by genre, release date or whatever you want to view your games. And here's just an overall look at all the games, all 42 of them. It's a really diverse and interesting mix of games. And if you go over to a game, you can click on it and you get a whole lot more information about it just before you start the game. And you press the reset button here. Anytime you're playing, you come to this little menu. You can save or load your game at any point. You can reset it, you can resume it, or you can go back to this main menu right here. It's very quick and simple. I like it. The USB inputs for the controllers and this lovely unnecessary detail. Again, this is where you used to plug in the Sega CD. It doesn't obviously do anything, but it's still pretty cool. At the back here, you got the HDMI connection and DC in. You get an HDMI cord and a DC. You also get this little connector which you can plug the USB power into, and it also can plug into a wall if you don't have that option. This is very cool because most of these don't come with one of these, which is very nice. And here's the controller. As you can see, it resembles the original design of the Sega Genesis controller. The D-pad I feel is actually slightly better than the original. It just feels really nice. The buttons feel exactly the same. They even got the same sound. They've managed to replicate it extremely well, and it's even got the same kind of weight that the original does, which I really like. You also get 2 of these in each pack, so that's pretty cool. You can play 2-player games straight out of the gate, and it plugs in with the USB connector. So overall the build quality is quite excellent. You can tell there's a lot of effort that went into it.
Okay, so now let's get to the games. It's advertised as having 40 games. It actually has 42. 2 of those are bonus games that were unreleased originally, so that is very nice. So that's more than double what the NES or Super Nintendo Minis had, so take that, Nintendo. And if you want to be technical about it, the Mega Man collection on here is actually a compilation of the first 3 Mega Man games, so that bumps up the game count to 44. So that's a pretty nice chunk of games. So let's not waste any more time and let's check them all out rapid fire style.
First up is Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, a simple but nevertheless fun little platform adventure game. Alicia Dragoon is an excellent side-scrolling run-and-gun game involving upgrading your dragon in this fantasy setting. Excellent music as well. You can't have a Genesis compilation without Altered Beast. It's simply so iconic. Is it a great game? Well, at least it's a decent short arcade romp. Beyond Oasis is a very cool action-adventure RPG hybrid similar to Zelda, which sports great graphics and a Yuzo Koshiro soundtrack. Castle of Illusion is a great early platformer for the system that's as charming now as it ever was. Castlevania Bloodlines is an often overlooked brilliant 16-bit Castlevania game that never gets enough respect. Awesome music as well. Columns is one of Sega's Tetris clones with a few variations on the genre. Comic Zone is another underrated Genesis classic, a side-scrolling adventure fighting game hybrid that looks and plays brilliantly. Contra Hardcore is a run-and-gun classic with bosses and insane graphics around every corner. Dynamite Headdy is a super bizarre but excellent hybrid game from Treasure that throws every gameplay mechanic in the book at you. Echo the Dolphin is a beautiful underwater adventure game that has a great story, graphics, and atmosphere. Earthworm Jim is a well-made and brilliantly animated platform game with tons of personality and a great soundtrack by Tommy Tallarico. Eternal Champions is Sega's attempt at a fighting game, and it's almost a classic but just misses the mark. It's a bit of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat mashed together. Tetris is one of the completed but unreleased games. It's Tetris, there's really not much else to say about it. Darius is the other bonus game, an absolutely awesome arcade conversion and a must-play shoot-em-up. Ghouls and Ghost is another fantastic arcade conversion that looks and still plays really well. Golden Axe is and will always be a great side-scrolling hack and slash that again is a great arcade conversion to the system. Gunstar Heroes is another demented treasure game that manages to be an excellent run-and-gunner with tons of personality. Kid Chameleon is an interesting, well-made side-scrolling platform game that's clever and fun to boot. Landstalker is a great adventure RPG style game with an awesome look and fun but challenging dungeons and quests. Light Crusader is the last treasure game here and is an action-adventure with light RPG elements. The game always reminds me of the original Diablo. Mega Man The Wily Wars is a great little compilation of the first 3 NES Mega Man games. Monster World 4 is an excellent side-scrolling adventure game with cool graphics and music. Phantasy Star 4 is an excellent end to the 16-bit Phantasy Star series and is a must-play and the only traditional RPG in this compilation. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine is a reskinned Japanese Puyo Puyo game that is actually very fun and has a cool storyline. Road Rash 2 is my personal favorite Sega Genesis racing games on the system, and I'm so glad they were able to include it. Shining Force is an excellent turn-based strategy game with RPG elements and is another must-play game on the list. Shinobi 3 is without a doubt the best Shinobi game on the system, and having this here is just awesome. Sonic Spinball is the often criticized Sonic pinball game that I personally think is a fantastic original game and well worth playing. Sonic the Hedgehog is the first Genesis game I ever played, and damn, this game never gets old. It's just pure classic all the way. Sonic 2 is my personal favorite Sonic game out of the entire series, and it improves on everything in the original. Space Harrier 2 is a good shooter, but just not as classic or as well made as the original. Still a decent blast. Street Fighter 2 is an excellent conversion of the Capcom Arcade Versus game, and is a must play. Just make sure you pick up one of those 6-button pads for it. Streets of Rage 2 is the best side-scrolling beat-em-up I've ever played. Pure awesomeness all the way with a Yuzo Koshiro soundtrack that is matched by nothing. Strider is a great arcade conversion of the Capcom classic with fast run-and-gun slicing action. Super Fantasy Zone is a cool, weird shoot-em-up game that is fun and is still as hard as hell as it ever was. Thunder Force 3 is another shoot-em-up gem here that has great graphics and a cool rocking soundtrack. ToeJam and Earl is the second weirdest game on this list, which is super hard to describe, but playing it in 2-player co-op mode is definitely the way to go. Vector Man is a forgotten but well-made platform run-and-gun game with good graphics and music. Virtua Fighter 2 is an attempt to convert the 3D arcade powerhouse to the Genesis, and well, they actually do a surprisingly good job despite it not being in 3D anymore. Wonder Boy in Monsterland is a great little action platform adventure game that's very charming and likable. And the final game is my favorite Disney game on the system, being World of Illusion, which is a brilliant platform co-op adventure game that you should definitely play with a friend.
Okay, so overall what I think of the system, I really like it a lot. I like the build of the system. It's really feels good, it looks like quality, it's not skimping on anything. I'm glad Sega decided to do this thing themselves instead of at games, otherwise we probably would have got some real cheap piece of garbage, to be honest. The controller is really nice. It emulates the good old original version of the Sega Genesis controller, you know, the big old style one, before they moved on to changing them to the Japanese version, which came later. It feels really nice. The buttons, everything feels exactly the way it used to. The D-pad is actually a little bit better in my opinion. It just feels a little bit more modern and a little bit more precise. Very nice, I love it. I like the fact that you get 2 controllers, so you can play 2-player stuff straight off the bat. My only gripe though is that they're the 3-button controllers, which doesn't really affect anything on this compilation besides Street Fighter. Street Fighter, you have to press start to jump between punches and kicks. When I originally bought this game back in the day, I had a 3-button controller with Street Fighter and we used to play it like that. It's not obviously too practical, so I had to go and buy a 6-button controller eventually to play it properly. So that's the only thing, that's the only game on here that is kind of hampered a little bit. Retrobit did the official Sega 6-button controllers, those ones there. I would highly recommend checking one of those out or getting one to play Street Fighter, because you know what's going to happen. The inevitable hack is going to come along where you'll be able to put all your own Sega Genesis games on you, whatever you want, and Mega Drive stuff or whatever. And you're going to need a 6-button one anyway to play some of those later games. The controller is also PC and Mac compatible, so you can use it for anything. It's USB, so I would suggest picking one of those up anyway. As far as the game selection goes, I really like it. It's pretty diverse. It's got some real out of left field games on there. I was really surprised that they had World of Illusion in there, one of my favorite Disney games. Play that in 2-player co-op, it's excellent. I also really appreciate the simplicity of the menu systems. I'm not a person that likes 7,000 options just to do something simple like play a game. I don't care about any of that. I just want basic options, like you can play it in 4:3 or widescreen. Whatever you choose is fine. It's just whatever your preference is. I don't like 700 options for my display. I find that kind of annoying. So this works for me pretty well. I just like simplicity. The emulation of the games is also spot on. It's done by M2. The guys are masters at emulating stuff. So these all feel really good. I haven't noticed anything dramatic that's different. The biggest test and emulation to check whether a Sega thing is working well is to try out Sonic 1 or 2. The sound in those games are very specific, so if you listen, I think it sounds really, really excellent. It sounds practically exactly the same. I'm very impressed. They never seem to get that right. Well, at least at games, couldn't never get that even remotely right. So I'm glad Sega took this under their wing, and it's a great product and I'd highly recommend it. And thanks for joining me, Bastish B at 64K. I hope you had a good time. If you can like and subscribe, that'll be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.